Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 51 of Competitive Magic with the Carnies. I'm your host from Italy, Andrea Mengucci, and joining me we have Javier Dominguez from Spain.
Hello, everyone.
And Anthony Lee from Australia.
Hola.
After a very long hiatus, almost a month, like 3 weeks, we are all back together. Las Vegas World Championship passed. It was a fantastic event, and huge congratulations to Anthony Lee for a fantastic top 4 finish.
Thank you. It's also funny when you call me Anthony, but go on.
There is some Discord emoji clapped into my headphones, but I don't know if people at home could listen. But anyway, Javier is responsible for that, probably. Anyway, congrats, Anthony. It was fantastic to see you leading the field on day 1, and then kind of a medium day 2, but good enough for the top 8. So again, congrats there. And then I had the pleasure of watching your match while doing the live commentary over there, but you got pretty destroyed in the top 4. I only watched that one. I didn't watch the top 8. Also, yeah, I believe you also watched it, right?
I watched some of it. Yeah, it was funny because I was listening to you talk about me. I was just standing there in the audience thinking, how long is it going to take until he notices I'm standing here? He noticed me eventually.
Yeah, because your match was like, they don't do like pre-recorded match. They obviously, make you play on Sunday, but they kind of like slow roll the matches to show them one at a time now. Like, they don't want you to miss anything.
Yeah,
basically.
I think that's better. Yeah.
Yeah, so you actually got to watch yourself losing live a few moments later, maybe like half
Well, I
an
mean,
hour,
I
things
also
like that.
well, me watching it live was me losing.
Yeah.
You mean I got to rewatch it? It wasn't live the second time, I would say.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Okay, but also of course, Javier played in Worlds, and while you didn't do any top 8, that was still a decent finish. What was your final record?
I think 761, which is like 38
I
or
guess we can
something like this. Yeah,
check
just
it.
check there. It's not. I mean, it's not a good result. So I finally bumped the tournament, but it had to happen eventually. So for me, it was like,
Well,
honestly,
35,
yeah,
35th.
in a way, a bittersweet tournament because I didn't do well, but I also like I was very happy for specifically like my friends and Anthony like being there after like so many time without the top finish. That definitely made my mental state much better.
Yeah,
Like I went 3 in the
yeah, of
draft
course.
here, and I think the last time I went 3 was like Amonkhet, no, not Amonkhet, like before or Kaladesh or something like this. Before I actually learned how to draft well, so the dreaded one just happened here, which honestly it's not a bad tournament for it to happen. Like this tournament was a little bit of a top 8 or bust tournament. We talk about this more later, but definitely was rough in a way. Like the games were kind of rough, but I'll take it. Like I felt like I had a pretty bad weekend on the battlefield, and even though I still managed to get a fine result, obviously not good or anything, but some days the cards just don't go your way, and yeah, I mean it was good to see Anthony doing well, and I did not watch the top 4 match because I was sleeping.
Oh, I thought you went to the Grand Canyons.
No, well, that's funny because the day before, a friend asked me like, "We're going to the Grand Canyon. Do you want to come?" The friends I was staying afterwards in Vegas, and I was like, "I don't want to do a Mengu," So
Yes, for
yeah.
those of you who know the lore about this, during Worlds 2018 when Javier won, we were testing partners, and the last day on Sunday when he top hated, my father, I don't want to say forced me because obviously nobody forces anyone on this, but he basically, we went to see the canyons together. That was like a 9 hours trip without Wi-Fi, so I didn't have any idea of what Javier was doing, and he ended up winning Worlds. and I wasn't there to cheer him. And you see actually his card where he hosts the big checks, and there's Sebastian Pozzo and somebody else next to him.
So you're
Luis,
saying
okay.
And
that
every time I
if Javier had
every time I
left,
see that,
I would have won. Is that what
yeah,
you're saying?
Maybe that's true.
uh,
Yeah, maybe that's true. If I had
maybe,
go to the
maybe,
canyon, yeah.
Oh god
Well, the
damn.
thing is, I went there. Yeah, I watched top eight with, I was watching there, and we discussed the semifinal matchup or whatever, and it was like, okay, I'm too destroyed, so I'm gonna go sleep. So if you can make it to the finals, I will be ready for you. So I put an alarm for when the semifinals will have ended, and I woke up to the Anthony saying like, "GG, I lost." So
Yeah,
I
I mean,
didn't see the
it
match.
took me
yeah,
like 5 minutes to lose, so that might be an exaggeration, but it was basically a 5 minute. It was very quick. Jin
Very quick.
Manuel destroyed me very quickly.
Next time I will
Um,
go to the
yeah.
canyon, to see if that works, Anthony.
I mean, it was a big occasion because Javier said that he wanted me to wake him up in time to come to the venue with me, which involves waking up at like before 8 a.m. So, I mean, for context, like it's very difficult to get Javier to wake up before 8 a.m. It's just a big deal. Like it's a getting Javier willingly waking up before 8. You normally need like a magical flute for Javier to wake up. So him asking me to wake him up, that's when I knew this is a big deal in capital letters. So that was I just wanted to recognize that act of valor, you know. So that was very nice.
I don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
Like, when you're there, I mean, being there with your friends before the tournament starts. Obviously, you're gonna play alone because you're always alone when you're playing. But for me, I think this changes things. So I wanted to be there, to support, and it was good. Like I was,
Yeah. The rest of the top eight is just a fantastic top eight we have. There's of course the picture right here in front of us if you're watching on YouTube. Kind of let's go through it. So of course we know Anthony, is, our podcast co-host, and then we have
Mengu, Mengu,
VEEDEO.
Mengu. One more thing. One thing you should know. It's Anthony is often referred in our testing team as Anthony Lee from Australia, and we blame you for that.
I think it is your fault
You know.
actually. People
Well, it may
ask me
be my
why that's the
fault,
case.
but
No, but
all right, it may be
Mengu.
my fault. I might call Anthony the same way you call him, like Anthony Lee from Australia. But just so you know,
I,
it's working. Other people are saying it too now.
I think just it's one of the fantastic things of our game that just made us so international. And I love geography. I love just that Magic made me travel so much and know so many different people. Even the testing team I'm in, once again, is just a million people from different places. And yeah, I love just also like the top eight announcement is like that. Is it still like that? Because I didn't hear the top eight announcement. Do they still say like from Australia or yeah, Cedric?
Yeah, they
Cedric
do. I
figures,
think
right?
it was a
Is
different
Yeah,
order though. I think they say from Australia, and then I think they say the
yeah.
country first.
Oh,
I could be wrong. Something like
We
that.
should know you were there, but yeah,
Yeah, you'd think so, but
yeah. I was also there and I don't remember as
I
well.
yeah, I'm not. I think it's.
actually,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
they do say from Italy or whatever from first, because I remember in the old top eight you would just guess who it was based on like in eighth place
From the United
from
States,
Italy.
from Italy, from Australia. Yeah, I think they say from
Yeah,
the yeah.
Yeah,
In
it
fourth
is with the
place, from the
country
United
first. Yeah.
States, Reed Duke. Yeah, I think so.
yeah,
I like
All right,
how
let's go.
that's
yeah.
like
So
Sorry,
anyway,
that has
I
different
just
levels of suspense.
let's
Like from the United States could be quite a few different people, but if you
that's
say
true.
from Brazil or
Yeah,
from Australia, there's not that many candidates.
that is
yeah,
true.
Anyway, go on.
yeah.
Where were we? Oh yes, Mengu was going
Billy,
through this
What were we?
picture.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of like talk about the whole top eight because again, this was the most important event of the year. It was the final event of the year. People not tested, sorry. People played 3 Pro Tours and you accumulate match wins throughout this Pro Tour to get to the leaderboard. Most other people qualified through RC first and second place. Most people qualified to top eight slots at the PT. So there was like some other people qualified to the Mox or from the Magic Arena. I believe those were the Avenue. At the end of the day, it was only 106 players, I think. So not the biggest, right? Was it under six?
Something. Yeah, I
yeah,
think it was
106.
160.
6, 7, or 8. Yeah, something. I mean,
It was definitely
Yeah.
around 100 players.
Anyway, yeah. So this was the final event of the year. The next professional event will be in February, PT Chicago. So it was like the final. Despite it was just September, they decided to finish the season, I guess. Anyway, let's continue that top eight thing. So we have Anthony, of course, and then we have Willie Edel from Brazil. I don't know how did Willie qualified. Do you guys know?
Yeah, the match points.
Adjusted match points.
So he did well at the Pro Tours,
Yeah.
at the Aries Pro Tours. Of course, he was Hall of Famer, but I guess did very well throughout the season, because now Hall of Famers are only qualified to one of the Pro Tours and not all of them. So it's it's harder. And then we have he qualified with also kind of a cool story about Willie Edel. He got there with Band Domain, or rather Domain Ramp, and he basically just played that deck on his main account on Magic Online for weeks, and he just didn't care. Everyone knew his deck. Actually, the metagame shaped up around his deck, and he just played the same deck, same list, and top 8 the event. So it's kind of just something that never happens, right? Everyone just tries to hide information, or at least like the very least thing you do is just you change your account from being like your main one. So it is kind of crazy, right?
Does it though? I remember, I think Canister, the PT that he won, I think it was actually like this also. He was just playing his deck and
Yeah.
didn't care and just won the PT with him.
Yeah.
Like, I think this has happened sometimes. Obviously, like not too many players do it, but when they're like playing alone, sometimes I do it and it's fine.
I guess like Canister stream it, so like where he monetized it. Willie could have just at least played on a alt account, But it's cool. Like, I'm not saying he made a mistake. I'm just telling to the viewers, because listeners.
Yeah, Willie's.
'cause I think it's,
he doesn't have much to hide.
fact.
He shares a lot. I think it's good. He's just very kind.
He is very kind
And
person.
then we have Jean-Paul de Prat from France. He is a world-class player with ton of great results lately, since 2018, where he got inducted in the MPL, and then just from there he did very many good results, and finally, actually, did he have a title before? I think this was his first.
No, I think
win,
he lost
right?
in the finals a couple of times though. Like, he lost in the finals of
Yeah.
Worlds. And
He lost in the final to Javier.
Yeah,
for
he also
sure.
lost to Utah before. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's true.
It's
he has
crazy,
lost
right?
to major finals,
Can you imagine someone losing in the finals of Worlds and then winning the next one? Seems crazy to me.
I've never
But
heard of that, but
yeah,
apparently it works.
Really impressive.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
And he got there with Esper Legends, super quick semifinals and finals, twice 3-0. A deck that basically was just old cards only. He had like, I believe, only 2 new cards in his deck. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty great. He was playing Esper Legends. I don't know what just happened in my screen, but anyway, there it is. He was playing Esper Legends, and just Lord Skidder Sewer King was the only.
That's
new
barely a
card.
new card.
Then we have Simon Nielsen. The Player of the Year of 2023, beating Javier and Nathan in the last day of competition, starting the tournament 0-2, and then finishing the Swiss, I don't know, 11-2, whatever.
No, 10. He just won 10 in a row.
It's kind of unbelievable.
10, yeah. Simon with 3 in a row.
3 in a row. He top 8'd March of the Machine Pro Tour, Barcelona Pro Tour, and now this.
That is a lot.
That is,
3 in a
Don't
row
forget,
is like very.
He also won Flesh and Blood Nationals in between.
That's
just
true.
in his spare time.
Yeah.
It's like actually
exactly.
ridiculous.
Like Simon definitely he's just doing a sick amount of results, and
yeah,
he's just good playing. It's like he's always. I always joke with him in the house. I was telling him he's like an intimidating opponent. He always laughs at that, but I assume at this point, like, everyone is like, if they play against Simon, it's like bad news. Like, he's definitely like very
actually.
good.
When they asked me in the PT March of the Machine survey, who do you want to play against? I said the Simon Nielsen, because I believe like he's the best opponent to play against. Like, it's just so
It's good
funny,
vibes.
smile. Of course, plays well, so you have a good experience, and it's just great. He's just a great person. I love testing with Simon. I played against Simon a bunch of the PTs too, and yeah, he's just great.
Yeah, I mean, we joke at some point about in Wolves that maybe because Simon was here in the podcast with us, and it was a great podcast. I think. Maybe we can bring him back
Yeah,
to
let's do it.
celebrate his 3 finishes in a row. So I think,
Yeah,
Yeah,
player of the
if
year.
Simon's still
I
interested, Simon, if you still want to come, you're very welcome.
Why why
We
why
love
aren't you
having you
phrasing
here.
it like we wouldn't just ask him after? Like what? You're saying it
I
like he
don't
would hear
know.
this request of the pod. We're just gonna ask him afterward. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. That's true. All right, Simon,
uh,
pretend you
yeah,
didn't hear anything.
yesterday actually I linked that episode. It was episode 38. It was the four of us after you guys top hated PT Barcelona because I wrote an article about Greentron in Modern and I linked that episode because there was a lot of knowledge there. So since you
Oh, nice.
just refreshed it, yeah. And then we have another topic member in Reed Duke. I believe he actually finished second in the Player of the Year race after winning the first PT of the year in Philadelphia. And then just, as always, Reed just doing uh, great performances and finishing first in Swiss with another domain ramp deck. I believe actually on Thursday I was uh, talking to Reed and asked what did he play, and I asked him if he played Golgari mid range because that's a deck that I liked in standard, and Reed is a Golgari guy, and he goes like, oh, but Golgari mid range loses to domain ramp, and then like the next day, you Anthony beat Reed, I believe, in that same exact matchup, or did you beat
Only in
Nassif
the top
actually?
eight. I beat Nassif, and
Oh yeah,
uh
right.
yeah,
You beat Reed in the top eight, yeah.
yes.
So it's kind of it's funny because of course we didn't mention it yet, but Javier and Anthony were playing Golgari mid range, which is a deck, a very cool deck with a bunch of weird ones like the blossoming tortoise and just you
It was
know
gonna be weirder too, but we'll get to
just
that. But this is not as weird
it's
as
just
what
one
was gonna
offs.
happen.
I remember watching this list, talking about this list, and I was like, there is only one four of in this deck.
Yeah, it's the
Like
good
how
card.
often you register a deck that only has one four of, you know? It's really just, it's like Mosfet Dread Knight and a bunch of fillers.
It
Yeah, pretty
actually
much.
happened
Yeah.
quite early, right? Like
Yeah.
we actually settled quite early on, like it's gonna be 4 Dead Knights because it's the best card, and the rest is gonna be like, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of the
All
other
right,
cards stand out
let's round out
enough.
this.
So anyway, we'll get back to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Kazune Kozaka. He's the other player who actually got close to win the whole thing because he lost the final to Jean Manuel. And he, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that he's the one that unintentionally drew the last round of Swiss of PT Barcelona against Hain. So like was very deep into that tournament, and it was almost also on a back to back, but not quite. I guess top 16 into top 8. So congratulations to Kazune. Then we have Greg Orange, who he's just a machine lately. Like I believe that every single PT is on the top table with a brew of his playing a wild control deck in any format, whether it's Pioneer, Modern, Standard. And he did it again at this PT. He played a deck that was outside the radar. It's like Blue Eye Control with Up the Beanstalk and Leyline Binding. Uh, and the whale, the Horn Lock whale. So once again, Greg Oren just. We used to joke, not joke, sorry. We used to say that Guillaume Wafotapa, Gabor Nassif, they're the best control player in the world because of, all the uh, events and tournaments. But I believe now Greg Orange is, if you like those titles and those names, the best control player in the world.
That's high praise, but I think it might be true. I'm not really sure. I think I'm not in a position to judge that, but that's I mean, even being in contention that's very high praise.
I mean, he's definitely there. I mean, he's a proto champion and also like
Yeah,
always
he just
being
always
there
does his
with
thing.
yeah, and he's very good
Yeah,
at
Yeah,
doing the
but
thing.
the Pro Tour title came in 2018, so that's a long time ago. But I believe that recently, just Greg is just always there, always up there in good results, and yeah,
I mean,
finally,
Nassif was
very good.
top 5 going to play with the U race as well, so I don't know.
but he
Yeah, but
wasn't
like
always playing
Nassif plays
control.
different decks, right?
Yeah,
No, absolutely.
Like
I
this
know.
leading
I was
game.
just,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
little
yeah.
Mengu.
Yeah. And then, okay,
Definitely
and let's
impressive.
finish it off with a good friend of mine from Italy, Lorenzo Terlizzi, 19 years old player. Super happy for him. I was testing with him. I shared a room with him. And it was just such energy. He was just waking up to his alarm and just doing push-ups and dancing. He was a just sick power to be around. He also started the tournament 4-4. He was 4-3 on day one and lost the first round of day two, and then rattled off, I don't know how many wins in a row, 6, I guess, to make the top 8. Yeah, he played Esper mid range. He's a great guy, super young, and he qualified through adjusted match points. Also, they did of course, he told me they did the limited the limited master race, and he's first tied with Simon Nielsen. So he got there doing a lot of match wins in draft. Which is very cool, and again, very happy for him, and I hope that the future is even brighter. And this is just the first, big events, which happens to be also one of the most important of the year, of course.
Yeah, he was very nice, very, very pleasant to talk to.
So yeah, that's it. That's the top 8. I was very happy to kind of go over to it because people need to acknowledge more of these very important events. And then I would say it's time to say that there was also another event in Vegas, which was the Limited Open. About 1,550 players, so it's the biggest tournament of the year. Yeah, and I managed to. I was playing there because I wasn't playing the Worlds, and I managed to get the top 8, get the PT invite, and I'll be back with you guys at Pro Tour Chicago.
See, found your way back. Didn't take very long, did it?
Yeah, that's true.
He really bounced back very quickly.
I kind of expected to just be gone, because like I didn't even care very much to qualify to the RC in Europe. I just didn't even go, so I just assumed it was over. But I had a chance in Barcelona with a PTQ that I lost in the top 8, and this one was way harder than in Barcelona. I needed to go 12-2 to get there. And here's the picture that Christian sent me, where you guys were actually standing behind me when I was playing the win and in. And I didn't know it. I was just playing, and then when I turned around, I saw like a million people. I saw you two.
I'll tell you a story about this. It's actually me and Anthony were just walking there, and we just run into you like 5 seconds before you won the game. So it's not like we saw the game. It's just like we just happened to get there 10 seconds before.
Yeah, we got there just in time.
We were going to wait. We were going to wait until you end, but you went to that turn. So
yeah, this is the very cool last turn of activating Agatha Soul Calderon to exile my opponent's Ginger Brute to give him blockable to my team and attack for lethal through a Goose Mother. It was cool. It was very cool playing against Alex from Limited Level Ups, who was a very good sport opponent. Yeah, I just so happy that event happened. And
I think they're really cool side events.
Nothing much to say.
They seem great to me. I like that they have that GP vibe. I don't know. People wanted them back, and well, they're not back in a full capacity. They're there at all the Magic Cons. The cons themselves are like really cool events. So I like that these are on and that you can play for something even if you're not qualified for the Pro Tour or Worlds or whatever. So yeah, it's awesome. It's also awesome.
Yeah, it's like a GP with a full con, Like if you're not qualified, this is like a GP with a full con. That's great, right? I think they look good. I mean, I have not played them yet, but I'm definitely like, if I have a con that I can go to and I'm not qualified, I'm definitely gonna play one of these. Like, this seems just very fun.
Especially since now the original championship just feels like, I don't want to say impossible because obviously it's not, but like it's much, much harder than when it started. Like in Europe last weekend, there was an RC, there were 700 people, and they cut invites. There's only 24 invites now, so...
Wait, isn't this GP harder than that?
I don't want to say it's... Yeah, exactly. It's just the GP might have been easier than
really?
Than
isn't
the RC.
Wait, what, how? It's 8 slots in like 1,000 people.
Well, but at the RC, there's... People are like supposed to be better, right? Because they got invited, they won something in order to get an invite. Whereas the GP, again, kind of weird because my first 2 opponents at the GP were actually like very good player, and it's kind of wild, right? and my tiebreakers was insane. I was like first in the Swiss, so I believe that the level of my opponent was actually pretty high throughout that event, which it's not something that I necessarily expected, but I guess I had good games. But yeah, overall, I believe that if you want to qualify, you probably should just treat these Magic Con GPs as much as you treat the original championship, because the yeah.
They may be similar, right?
Yeah,
Like maybe the percentage of qualifying is similar in one of the GPs and the RC. So it's like you have two RCs,
well, the
for example.
yeah, the American is different, right? Because it's like over 1,000 people and you have more slots. But I don't know because they cut those slots now, so it's very hard. The problem of the RC system is that you have to qualify, and then you have to do well, and of course
Yeah, but I mean, if you try to
sometimes
qualify, it's not that hard to qualify. But the thing is, you have one shot only. Like even if you qualify to the RC, which I will assume it's reasonable to do so. Like if you put all the RCQs plus also like all these qualifier GPs, whatever roads you have, still you have one slot. You do bad in a tournament, GG. So I think having this as well is a good additional option, especially if you're in US where the cons are mostly. But I mean, I guess Barcelona also had this tournament. I think it's
yeah,
good to have like even
and
if it's hard a shot, it's another shot, and I think that's pretty cool for people
yeah,
like want
and
to.
yeah, on Saturday there was also the same PTQ that we had in Barcelona. So you had a sealed event,
Oh,
which in Las Vegas was 800 people, and the top 32, which you achieved with 711, I believe, got to draft. Top 32 got to divide it in four pods, and the winner of each pod qualified to the PT. And my good friend Eduardo Sajgalik lost in the final again after doing so at
ugh.
the one in
That's so
what was in
brutal.
Minneapolis.
Oh.
So it's kind of insane.
It
He
is
also,
brutal.
yeah,
So this is
and he
yeah.
finished ninth in one of the RC. Yeah, he's just
Jeez.
so many close.
He will
Yeah,
get there
it's
though. He's good.
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
Eduardo was always
We
like
all
absolute top quality, even out of the pro players. But
yeah.
it's such a brutal season. Oh my god.
Yeah, we all hope he got there. He was our in our team house. He was the he was basically summoned to be the limited master. He stayed with us throughout the week to just focus on draft, and it's amazing that he just decided to come for that thing. And he also has a win rate. So between Barcelona and here, he did 6 house draft and he went 17-1. It's just
Whoa,
unbelievable.
jeez, that's
Yeah,
That is a
seems
lot.
yeah.
unrealistic.
In Barcelona, he went 9-0, and here he managed to lose one finally to Young Ming.
That is
And
sick, actually.
Jeez.
yeah,
That is a lot.
uh, actually, I know a fun story about these Hinaus draft because I came to Vegas, so my goal, like the reason why I came to Vegas was to do the commentary of on Sunday. The Wizards called me to do the show that I did the same one in Barcelona. So I was happy to come, and they were also happy for me to just join the testing house, join the GP and such to have kind of more topic to talk about. So I just decided to hang out with them and just draft as much as possible. So I did every draft they did in the house, which were seven. And so basically, I just drafted paper, drafted on computer, and hung around with some great people. And yeah, it was really great. Of course, we had the swimming pool, so I had a fantastic time there. What about you guys? Did you also have a swimming pool at your testing house?
We told people that there was a swimming pool, but there was only a pool table. So, like when people arrived at the house, we would tell them to check out the bowling alley, which obviously didn't exist. We were just sending them outside into the backyard for no reason, and then we told them to check out the pool, which was the pool table. So, no, we had neither, but we said
That's
there
so
was.
Anthony, though. Just in case you listeners don't know, that's a very Anthony thing to do. He goes like, check the
Well,
pool, and obviously there's no pool.
it was Simon's idea.
Well, but it's an Anthony execution. You
That's
have
that's
corrupted
that's
Simon.
that's what that's what
That's how I
that's
feel.
that's called teamwork. Okay, that's
Okay,
that's
okay,
teamwork.
I accept
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I was one of the victims. Just obviously.
What do you mean you're a victim?
No,
You
but
got you
it
got to
was
think there was a
definitely
pool
one.
for a couple minutes. That's a good thing.
It
Yeah,
was it
I
was my
like pools in houses.
I
Mm.
don't.
I was one of my requirements. I told to Zen like I'm coming if there's a pool, basically.
That's a luxury
Yeah.
I cannot have, but definitely. I mean, we had a pool in the Barcelona house, and it was good. So, but well,
We didn't
it's
use it
that's it.
very
At
much though.
least we had some good spaces to play. At least like the house was fine, but testing was decent though. Even though it was hard, like the constructed portion specifically was very hard to choose a deck or whatever. It was definitely like I don't know if this is what we're talking about now, but it was very
Yeah,
hard.
we can definitely talk about that because your team's divided in very many different decks this time. Can you do you remember exactly how many people landed on which deck so we can show here?
Yeah, of
We
Like, let's
course.
do,
maybe start
yeah.
with yours.
We have three decks. We had Anthony and me on Golgari. Then there was Tangrams, Nate, and Simon on Soldiers, and Carl, Matty, and Stefan on Esper Control. Is this correct, Anthony?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was a 3-3-2 split. Nice and even.
All right, so standard, of course, is the format. It is a competitive, relevant format because I believe the next arena qualifier is standard at the end of October.
That's right.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Also,
Okay,
any
so
store
let's begin.
championships are this format as well, and the next RCQ season and RC season will also be standard. So
Yeah, the UE announced that the next RC, RCQ, and PT will be standard, but not Chicago, the one after.
wherever that is.
Uh, all right, so let's start with Golgari Midrange by Anthony Lee, comma, from Australia. This is what I would say, but anyway, that's something else. Okay, so you're playing with 4 Mosswood Dread Knight and a bunch of 2-offs, 3-offs, and 1-offs.
I don't know. We really underrated this Red Knight, didn't we? We really like when we first saw this card, we thought that it was basically more underdogs, but it is like not even on the same. It's not even close. Like this is much better than Tenacious Underdog for a variety of reasons. Like
I wonder.
yeah, it's more flexible.
I wonder if I highlighted it when we talked about the cards from the set that I took 10 cards.
We didn't
I
really
wonder
talk
if I
about
took
cards
this
in
one.
the context of standard when we were talking about new cards, right? Because of Worlds. So we probably didn't, because I
Yeah.
can't really imagine
But we
this
did not
card
think
is...
it was good.
Yeah, we also
Actually
didn't
thought
think
it was
good.
bad. Yeah,
We thought it
I
was
like
underdog,
maybe,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's better than Harvester. Like it's just a very good card. Like, it's
Yeah.
good. Like good, and the reason why this deck exists.
So
Like,
the reason
power
that
level
it's
of
so
cards.
much better is that it's a lot more flexible. So the way in which you can spend your mana is a lot better with this card. It's actually better against removal a lot of the time because you can, like, if your opponent has removal open, you can just play the card drawing side without committing your entire turn to it. But it's also like extremely good defensively as well, which is obviously something where underdog is particularly horrible. So this card actually ends up being way more flexible than underdog is. Underdog skews very aggressively. This card, you kind of do all of it, and that's really important for a mid-range deck, I think, because the whole concept of a mid-range deck is to be able to be flexible around your opponent's plan, and so the cards like Dread Knight that let you do that are the most important. So that was like the only card that was locked as a 4-of, I think. It's kind of one of the key cards that makes this archetype playable. Because, I mean, at the very start, when we were looking at cards that were, good in Standard, there were not many green cards, and we thought that it would just fail because we were like, why would you play green cards? There's no good green cards. Turns out they're all in this set. They just made enough green cards. They obviously, Wizards knew that green was a little too weak in Standard, because no one had played any green cards other than Invasion of Zendikar and Topiary Stomper before, for the last couple sets. So Wilds of Eldraine had some real goodies for green. So I think Mosswood Dread Knight and Restless Cottage are the cards that make Golgari viable. So it's nice.
Yeah,
The set actually had a big
this
impact.
land is so good.
Yeah, it's
Like,
incredible.
Shota Yozoka played blue-black splashing for this land. He played blue-black
Oh.
fairies, only splashing for the cottage.
Just so you know, I had that in testing as well. Do you remember, Javier? I was like, I have this like
We do,
crackpot
yeah.
idea. I was like, Restless Cottage is so good, and we said like one of the problems with blue black is it doesn't have a creature land. What if we just splashed for Restless Cottage and Boseiju? And that was like my wild idea. I was so excited when I saw Shota did the same thing. That was very validating. But that's how good this card is. Like, this is a creature land that's so good you can just splash for just it. So
Yeah.
wow,
I remember doing this in a draft. I was green-white and I splashed Restless Cottage.
totally reasonable.
yeah.
I mean, it's odd because the requirements are so low to splash a land, right? Like compared to a spell, like you don't actually need that many sources because Worst case scenario, it's a land, so it's not like
And
having its
then
spells dead in your hand. Yeah.
alongside three blossoming tortoise, it was even better because now it meant that you paid one less to activate, it got pumped, and you got to just reanimate
It
it
just
and
finds it more. Yeah.
get mana to find it. So yeah,
We also didn't think this
basically
card would
like
be good, did we, Javier?
No, yeah, I thought it was like trash. Like it was very
Yeah,
bad,
it doesn't look
but
good.
it eventually like become better and better and better. And like every time, Shielded gets answered, well, this is better. Like I had games in Worlds where this card was even more aggressive than Shielded. Like this card is good if you play in Cottage, which obviously you're gonna be playing if you play in Black Green. This is a good card. Like obviously it's not great in some situations, but most of the 4 mana cards are kind of conditional anyway. Magic, but
and
yeah.
because of the tortoise, you also played two Mishra's Foundry, which is even more creature land.
No, it
That
wasn't
actually the
necessarily.
tortoise turns this.
Wasn't just because of the tortoise. Like, it's a bit different. Like, I think even if we didn't play tortoise, we might have played Foundry. Obviously, having tortoise makes it a lot better, but um, the reason this card is important is because of planeswalkers. You don't really have many good direct answers to planeswalkers you can play, so Mishra's Foundry helps a lot with that. Specifically, this has like a similar pattern to Mutavault against Liliana of the Veil, where you can play creatures that could get edicted by Liliana if you have a Foundry to be able to kill the Liliana back and not get stuck under it. So that's the actual reason for Mishra's Foundry. It looks like it's a Tortoise Synergy thing, but it's actually just
Was there
a good card.
was there many Liliana around? Because I think it was kind of like you guys
There
played
wasn't a
three,
ton at
and I
early in the
guess
format, but we
that's
found it was
it.
so good in the mirror that we imagined that anyone who was playing the deck would play a bunch, because you would probably only play a deck if you thought it was good, in which case you would presumably have cards for the mirror, right? And Liliana was both good in the mirror and against the decks that attack the deck well, namely Domain. So if you thought the deck was good and thought that other
Mm,
people would think it's good, then you would play a lot of Liliana.
yeah. So you had three main deck and no sideboard, but yeah, so this is mainly for the domain decks,
The
I
issue is
guess.
Liliana gets worse post cyborg games usually. Cyborg games as well, cards like Obstinate Battle come in, but also like where cards that are good against Liliana are gonna be played. And also it's a card that it's not good in multiples. But you can discard if you have multiples. That's something we heard many times, but it doesn't work like this. Like the card's not good in multiples because you lose the opportunity to have it. And we actually struggled finding cards that were good in those matchups, but eventually we settled up on Rankle's Prank, which I failed to pronounce well in the process, the whole testing process.
It's like a tongue twister,
But I
yeah.
think, yeah, it's like better than Liliana when in the matchups where you need Liliana to be good, like
Yeah.
Ramp or whatever. And that's
What's
mostly why.
oh,
Like ideally, obviously, you want to play like more Lilianas, but we thought we could do better.
yeah, I expected. I mean, I've never played record prank in standard, but in draft, I dislike this card.
No,
I was not a,
really, it's
I was not a
great.
So
fan of
strong.
record prank.
It's great. It's
Yeah,
super strong. Boom, prank. They die.
Like, it didn't look that good,
yeah, I don't
and then I
know.
just kept dying to it, and then
It's
I started playing with it and crushing
so
everybody with
the
it.
so my experience with this card is it's bad in control deck. It's good when you turn on the life lose 4 life side of it, because in reactive decks, for example, sometimes your blue black decks had the cursed token. That was kind of awkward. But just in general, I found myself even in Golgari. I don't know. I found myself to always have this card at the wrong time. A lot of people had the tokens, the rat tokens, I guess, and yeah,
You
this
can
was one
too.
of my experience I had. One of the feedback I gave
Wow.
was that this card was not very good in draft.
Wow. We thought it was
Yeah,
fantastic in draft, and
again.
in constructed it was obviously it was very good for me as well. Mostly
We
because of that
Most
probably
stuff.
would
definitely,
have
yeah.
not played in constructed if we didn't think it was that good in limited. I think.
There is some
Yeah,
chance,
this is
yeah.
why I raised up.
Honestly,
This is why I raised up my concern. I was surprised to see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
it
mean,
wasn't
we
it
saw
wasn't the
there. We saw it
card
in some lists. But
necessarily
yeah,
that made the biggest breakthrough from limited to constructed here, but we'll get to that in a bit.
no, yeah,
What was
definitely,
it?
definitely
What
not.
was it? What was it?
We'll
Was it
get to it.
Moss with Dread Knight?
Let's maybe we should talk about the cards that are actually in the deck, and then we'll talk about what almost made it. Um,
Is
where
it
were we?
this?
No, there's one
Oh, it's
card.
not here.
There's one card
Oh,
that's
is it
not here in the
Glissa?
deck. No,
Is it,
and
sorry,
No, the
Greta?
Glissa is
Is it
here.
Greta?
no, it's not Greta. Better than Greta.
We did
Sorry,
try
Close
Greta though.
enough.
better than.
Yeah, better than Greta, and it was there until the very last
Is
moment.
it?
Actually,
Is it the
Actually, the last
common,
moment.
the 3-2 that makes a food?
actual last moment, the card became Bramble Familiar
Oh, you're talking
or
about
Mrs.
Gumdrop
Shadow.
Poisoner. Yes,
Is
we
it?
tried that as well. But yep. Wait,
We
wait,
can
wait.
dip. We can dip
No,
into the kitchen for this deck. I mean,
no,
we
no,
always
no.
do.
I'm talking about the common,
Nope.
the three
Common?
two,
No, it's not that one. But you're getting there.
I don't even
But
know what
it's not
card
that
Meg
the
was
one.
talking
green
about.
one.
What's the card name?
I mean, the best green common. What's it called? The 3-2 for one green. You make a food.
That's the
The
best
wolf.
green common?
That's so good. I don't know.
Oh my
I don't know
God.
if it's the best. I don't rank the best worst, but I love that guy.
I know the one you're talking about. It did not occur to me you could be
7 mana.
talking
It's
about that card.
it's close. It's close, Mango.
The
It's
7 mana 6/6.
no. Let's gonna say it. Let's say it. The
Yeah,
card
let's
with
say
most
it.
played in Worlds, also actually as a 12, is Tough Cookie.
Oh
We
wow.
were very close to play Tough Cookie. It was actually fairly
It was so good.
decent in some spots. It was we were very close. We eventually settled on the Elemental, mostly because Elemental into Tortoise is like,
Mm,
you know what it is.
yeah.
It's
But
just
it was very
broader,
Tough
yeah.
close.
Cookie's so broken in draft.
Have,
Tough Cookie's
yeah,
so
exactly.
broken in
Like,
draft.
I
Yeah.
mean, given this metagame, I mean, I think we can agree, Anthony, right? Like, seeing the metagame, we will have played the Tough Cookie, I think.
Yeah, so the specific reason
Why?
that Tough Cookie was
Who
so
is it?
good is that it really, really helps your domain matchup. So it's a lot of, like, anytime your opponent is interacting with you, like, Tough Cookie is just a lot of stats out of one card. So if your opponent isn't being very active, this lets you basically attack for 6 without committing more to the board. So it's good before they Sunfall you, because you don't have to add more cards to pressure them. But it's also extremely good in multiples through a Sunfall. So if you have a food in play from Restless Cottage or from a previous Tough Cookie, they Sunfall, you play another Tough
Yeah.
Cookie, hit them for 4, and then because you have 2 foods, you're now threatening to attack for 10 the next turn, which is just incredible. Like, Tough
Yeah.
Cookie just... If your opponent is not, like, really on the board, then Tough Cookie is excellent. If your opponent is on board, then the ability is a little expensive, so the card's not as good. So, for example, in mid-range mirrors, Tough Cookie, not so good. So I wouldn't be very happy to play Tough Cookie if I knew I was going to play against lots of black-green mirrors or against Esper, for example. But if I'm playing against Control or Domain, Tough Cookie is one of the best 2-drops I could play. Also, it's Tough Cookie. We kept singing the name Tough Cookie, you know, Tough Cookie over and over again.
Tough Cookie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in fact,
Nathan
I
will
was
come
so
to the room
high.
and be like, Tough Cookie.
Yeah. It got kind of in. It really got pretty wild because, at some point Nate just like bolted awake at like 5 a.m. or something and started writing out the pros and cons of Tough Cookie. So it was literally preying on him in his dreams. You know, Tough Cookie just can't be escaped. Although he also did realize that he was sharing a room with me, so you know he accused me of having whispered sweet Tough Cookie things into his ear while he was asleep. You know, trying to inception Tough Cookie into his dreams.
Why?
Um,
What happened to Nathan? Why did he switch off the Tough Cookie train and went to Azure Soldier at the end?
So this is it's actually I think it's a difference in terms of how we approach deck selection, which I think is pretty interesting. So Nathan felt that Golgari could not possibly be the best choice for the tournament, and he's actually correct. I don't think like Golgari is not like an incredibly good deck. The reason that we picked Golgari was familiarity more than anything. But Nate is looking to play the best deck, and that also makes more sense for Nate, who can just kind of pick up anything and he'll play it very well, right? But
Unlike us.
yeah, but for example, we were like, well, we will definitely play Golgari very well and have a very good list, right? And I think in standard that's just more important. Like, the thing is that this standard format has a lot of decks. Like, it's more decks than any other format that you would reasonably consider competitive, I think, right now. And that means there are a lot of matchups you have to test, and the matchups are actually quite difficult because a lot of them are dynamic as well. They play very differently based on the hands you draw, and they play differently pre-board and post-board, right? So you actually have to understand a lot of matchups to a fairly complex degree, and that's why comfort is so important. Because, I mean, I think Javier will agree with me, there is no shot that Golgari is like the best deck for any tournament you play in. I think it'd be very hard to construct a metagame where it's like clearly the best choice, but it's also like not ever really a bad choice either, which is, you know, kind of classic rock sort of thing that people talk about. But the fact, like, if you can play the deck better than everything else, then I think you should just play that deck. I think that's something that is often said about a lot of different formats, but it's far more true of standard in general, and especially this standard, than anywhere else, I think. So this was definitely like a comfort choice, but I think a comfort choice is legitimately good. Because and that's especially true in the short time frame that we had, right? Like if you have to know like all these matchups in and out, and they're very hard, and there's a lot of them, being comfortable is important. And I think the pressure element is important as well. Something that Javier has mentioned multiple times, I think.
Yeah, also in the
Is
podcast
yeah,
here.
yeah, exactly. What would you play? What do you want to play when you're under pressure? When you're fighting, it doesn't matter whether you're like fighting for your day 2 life at on the bubble, or whether you're playing for your top 8 or playing in the finals, whatever. When you're under a lot of pressure, what deck do you want to be playing? That's really, really important, I think. So just playing the deck that you're most comfortable with. Yeah.
Fun fact about this: they dinner the day before submission, they actually put random old games in coverage, like LPT games or whatever. At some point, they show my games against Huey in the finals or whatever. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be playing a deck that I know well.
Yeah, because that was the
if I'm
same thing.
under this pressure.
Like the worlds where Javier lost in the finals to Huey, he played mono red, which was actually it was even more extreme than this, because there was just absolutely no shot that mono
It was a
red
bad
was the
deck.
best deck. Like it was
Yeah.
actually just not even good, right? It lost to the best deck in the format. But Javier played it because he knew he could play it really well, and he'd have a good list, and that's what matters in standard. I don't know. So when Javier saw that, he was sure. Comfort
I was
games.
sure at that point. Like
Yeah.
I was still like kind of already gravitating towards Golgari, but I was sure at that point.
Yeah,
like,
that kind
one
of
more
locked
week.
it.
Yeah, I think I will have played. I think maybe we'll have played Soldiers. We have one more
I
week.
think so. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, because Soldiers felt like it was a better deck
Yes.
than
I
Golgari,
agree.
but we played Golgari better, and we were confident both in that we could make a good list because we understood the archetype very well, and we also had played a lot with it. So I think we made a right call for specifically both of us, but also it's not like our deck was good, so it's not like we needed to convince anyone because
Yeah.
our deck was just not very good. It was just like a
Just fine.
comfort deck for us. Yeah, just fine. But that's enough to win tournaments. Like at the end of the day, it's just like picking a deck that you have the max percentage to win a tournament with, and that's it. And I think for me, and I think Anthony too, playing Soldiers, especially in the high pressure situations, will have meant like making a lot of like mistakes just based on experience, like the lack of experience in this case. In like if we played Soldiers against I don't know, like some decks that we have not played against before, it's easy to make mistakes, right? And that's something that's to me not very cool or acceptable for a tournament like this.
Yeah, like Simon was saying, I think Nathan as well, was saying the Soldiers deck is so hard to play against. I'm like, yeah, that it's also very hard to play. Like, it cuts both ways, I think. It's not like any of these decks are like very easy, but something that's hard and that you're not very familiar with is really kind of playing with fire. But I think
Yeah,
the Soldiers
also-
deck just seems so good, yeah. But
Yeah,
it's
that's
too
I
hard.
think something I want to comment about this matter. It's like hard and easy, especially the higher you go into higher level of Magic, it's very relative. Like if you're even this deck, I mean, if you teach a new player how to play, maybe Soldiers is easier for a new player than the Golgari. But the thing is, Golgari is just a normal mid-range deck. It's so similar to other decks we have played before that even if it's harder on like a theoretical level, it's not harder for us. And that's something that matters a lot, in these situations. And one more thing also is like, I mean, we were discussing with Nate the day before because Nate was in between Soldiers and Golgari. He kind of worked in both decks. It's like, I might have played Soldiers in Nate's shoes because he's much better at picking up the deck. I just felt like I couldn't pick the deck also. And Anthony actually was the first to lock in Golgari because he said like, okay, I cannot play Soldiers well in 2 days, so I'm playing Golgari. And I was like, yeah, half a day later, just jumping in the same ship. Like sometimes you can just, I'm not a big fan of people playing different decks or whatever, but I think there's situations where if the reason to not play a deck is like, okay, this deck is just better, but I cannot play it well, that's totally fine. Like that's a reason that, like, I think this reason is used way less often than it should. That would be my,
Well,
especially like in
it
PTQ
sort of
level or
requires
whatever,
admitting defeat, and a lot of Magic players are not entirely willing to do. Like, I mean, not defeat, but like you have to admit your shortcomings in a very real way. I think because yeah, you just have to be like, I don't know, I don't think I can play this deck. Well, like it's very tempting to think, oh, I can just push through, I can learn this deck if I really put everything into it, that sort of thing, But I don't know. Sometimes you have to be realistic.
No,
Just,
yeah, but that's putting like an ego element to deck selection, and I think that's a very
yeah.
heavy weight. Like, I think you
Yes.
should not have, if you're trying to compete to win tournaments, you should not have like an ego element to that. Like, if you cannot play the deck well, it's fine to not play it. Just play the deck that gives
So
you the best percentage to win the tournament. That's it. There's no, tournament. If you win a trophy's going to be there for you, like in your suitcase or whatever. The same, even if your deck is easier or whatever.
so time, like when did you decide? Like what day did you lock on Golgari, and you were like 100% sure
For
there
me,
was no
it was
way?
faster, like Javier just said. So for me, like 2 days before submission, I was like, I'm playing Golgari.
So that was the exhibition was on Wednesday
Yeah, so Monday.
afternoon.
Monday.
So you mean Monday?
Yep.
Yeah, he was
Monday
Monday
you got here,
lunchish time, and it was Monday night, Monday dinner.
and then you spend the whole Tuesday kind of like tuning the slots, all these one-offs. I see
Not
also the sideboard
kind
is
of,
like two
but
two two
the
one
thing is,
one one one
like,
one.
the two of us had already spent a lot of time working on Golgari because obviously, like, during testing, people are naturally going to be entrusted with certain archetypes or whatever, right? Like, just naturally. Like,
Mhm.
everyone has, like, someone who's gonna play control more often, and so they'll, have the, um, control list to a certain point. We were like that with the Golgari midrange deck, especially because, well, most people didn't really like it. So, you know, naturally we played it a lot more. So our list was already like not that far off like where it was gonna be. Like, yes, we did spend time on Tuesday like exactly tuning it, honing it, especially in the afternoon. But it was not as far off as you would. Like, obviously the most important things happen at the end, yes. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna play. It wasn't like we were starting from Monday or whatever. Like, we already had a lot of the work done on. Um,
We
more,
actually didn't play him Tuesday, right? I think we played some games on Tuesday morning to figure out something else, but
yeah, not that
the
much,
process
yeah.
was just not playing. We just after lunch we just sit down on the table and we just discussed for hours and hours and more
Yeah.
hours about
The
the
thing is,
deck.
like, we had already done the work in terms of getting the knowledge to be able to make the decisions. Because, like, if we have to actually play the games to get that knowledge on that day, that's too late. Like, by that point, we would not be able to. We probably wouldn't be able to get the deck to a state that's worthy to play in the World Championships just in a day, right? So the thing is that we played enough that we know that we have the knowledge that we need to figure things out. Then the Tuesday is figuring stuff out. That's what the hours of discussion is for. But we had to have done the work to be able to get there with those hours of discussion. So it's not really like an iterative process or something, you know. Um, yeah, we have to. It involves a lot of setup before that, I guess. But we knew we could do it. That's the important thing.
It was fun though.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was a little bit longer than I thought it would be. Like,
Well, that's just
usually
because
it's like
Tough
some
Cookie was
hours.
such a pickle. Like, we just.
Yeah, exactly. Also, the number of two drops or whatever. Like, usually it's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours or whatever to make a deck like this.
Yeah.
This time it was more. Like, we eventually, like, at night we had like some small things to decide on Wednesday morning, which is usually not the case here. But it was like this was a tough one to crack compared to maybe other similar decks where we were like,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Probably because we
like
disagreed on a fundamental thing in terms of like how the curve should look, right? So
yeah. But that's something we had to discuss. Like,
yeah, but I mean that's why it took longer because
But
it
it
was a
was
fun
only,
mission.
but it was only the two of you. Wasn't
Yeah.
there
Well,
anyone
We
else
had Nate
interested
pop
in
in
the
a
archetype?
bit as well, of course, because he was thinking about it and he was also just very willing to help us because it's how a team works. But
All right, and then you guys had a third deck as well in the team, which is the Esper Control deck that was played by Karsarap, Mati Kuzma, and who was the third one?
Stefan,
Stefan Schultz.
yeah,
the mental misstep.
And yeah, and yeah, this was just like good old control deck, no creatures. You only win with Jason, the Wandering Emperor.
can we make an agreement to not use the adjective good next to the word control? Like that would be ideal.
Come on,
I
Anthony.
think.
Control decks can be good. Orange isn't top it with anyone coming with a control deck.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if you're Greg Orange, you can play a control deck. That's fine. No one else do it, please.
Well, I mean, this deck was actually
It actually wasn't that
quite
bad.
good for a
I'm
control
obviously
deck. Yeah,
spoiling,
it was quite
but-
good for a control deck.
for a
Yeah.
control deck, he says. But I mean, I think, yeah, this deck was interesting because it kind of went against conventional wisdom as well, right? Because Javier and I have generally held that control decks are good the narrower the format is, which is really the opposite of what's going on here. But like this format is like particularly broad, and yet this control deck is actually decent. I think it obviously has the usual problems that a control deck does, but it wasn't bad. I think, or at least not as bad as I had imagined that it would be. Because from the start, I had immediately assumed there was no chance we would play a control deck, but that quite rapidly turned it wrong. It was just winning more than we would have thought. Part of it is, of course, that like Mati is incredibly experienced and comfortable with control decks, so that element, like we talked about, you know, comfort being particularly important as opposed to playing just the best deck, and still true of Esper control. But a bunch of its things happen to line up quite well against the format. Like Sunfall is just an absolutely sick card in Standard right now. Like it lines up so well against so many things. So I think Sunfall's doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. The Wandering Emperor as well, incredible card and fits like really well in this deck. So yeah, I kind of see like there's a bunch of decks like trying to like leverage these very powerful white cards in. I mean, this is one way of using the Wandering Emperor, because that card's flexible, right? You can put that in a bunch of different decks and it'll play a bit differently, and this is one of the uses. The sandwich between the Wandering Emperor and Memory Deluge is one that has been around for a little while now, and I don't know, still really good here. It's very hard for people to get around it.
I mean, this deck also kind of easy to play compared to Golgario or Soldiers,
Yes.
which is also why it wasn't the menu for us until somewhat late. Ultimately, we didn't think the deck was that good, but it hadn't been better. We will have maybe played it. Like, you know, at the end of the day, the plan is just like kill everything, play an Emperor, win the game. Like that's you know, I know matchups are like this. Like there's no flexibility. So that's a big reason for us to almost play the deck. I mean, not almost, but it was like definitely not
this does tie back into a little bit into what you were saying about deck difficulty before being different across different players. So if you really are unfamiliar with the format or with competitive Magic, then control decks can seem more difficult because you have to know all the things that are there. But if we assume that you have at least that level, control decks are easy because they're not strategically complex, which is what Javier is referring to in terms of your game plan is the same every time, which is don't die and then you win the game, right? Like just make sure you don't die. Whereas like the mid-range decks and are difficult because you have to be flexible. Like you have to figure out what your plan actually is, and if you're following the wrong plan, then everything you do is just going to be messed up, right? Like it's, for example, if we take like Mosswood Dreadnought, it's absolutely game breaking if you drew a card instead of playing a 3/2 or vice versa when you were supposed to do the other thing, right? Or for example, in these Soldiers decks, they just bombard you with all these different options because everything costs 1 mana, and there are like lots of instances that are interchangeable. Whereas, yeah, control decks are just easier. So,
there's one thing I want to talk about. This is like sideboarding also affects a lot. Like I see the Soldiers deck, and let's say I play with Soldiers against a deck that I have never played against. Sideboarding is very hard because you cut one more creature that you should can cost you a game. You know, like also sideboarding with control decks tends to be easier for the reason as well. Like your plan is just such as if you have one less removal, it's less likely for you to be punished or whatever. But
it's also usually just Soldiers,
it's
like it's also just easier. Like the thing about answers, they either work or they don't. They're more binary. So like with Soldiers, like you're like the threats line up against other threats in a certain way where it's not always immediately clear what is correct, right? Like maybe a card is not good in a matchup, but it's not very obvious. Whereas with a control deck, either your thing kills the thing or it does not kill the thing, right? And if it does not kill the thing, then you should sideboard it out and bring in a card that does kill the thing. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I want to say
like if you are as a player playing a PT or whatever, like evaluating a deck difficulty, pay some attention to the sideboarding. Like think about like, am I going to sideboard this well if I play against a deck that I have not played against? If the answer is yes, well, chances are the deck is not hard for you or whatever. If the answer is like, well, I have no idea, well, that's a red sign.
That's ominous. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it. I think a lot of this is particular to Standard because the sideboarding tends to be more fluid, because the cards are less targeted, and you're more likely to change your deck structurally pre and post board.
I was thinking of Standard, absolutely.
Yeah, so this mostly applies to Standard. I think it's less true for other formats where your sideboard cards tend to be higher impact and more targeted, right? Like, I don't know, if your opponent's playing a lot of artifacts and you have a card that destroys all their artifacts, you should just do that, right? But also because
That's
the
a good
decks are
advice,
more
Anthony.
linear.
Thank you. That's
But
professional
also,
advice. Top 4 in world's competitor advice.
but also
study
because the
Salvatore's
decks are more
artifacts.
linear, so like you
I know,
can't
I know.
sideboard as much and adjust as much. So in standard, it's way more likely that your mid-range deck needs to sideboard to become a much more disruptive one, or a more aggressive one, or a more controlling one post-board each time, and then you kind of have to like juggle some numbers to make that work. So having that understanding is really important, I think, in standard. So keep that in mind, I guess. But while we were talking about sideboard, I just remembered something that made us more interested in playing this control deck. So one of the problems with the control decks before was that they suck against domain, but Matti figured out a great plan against domain, which is Jace, the Perfected Mind. He realized that they're not that good at actually killing you. They always grind you out because obviously, the control deck tries to get inevitability by drawing more cards, but you can't draw more cards than Atraxa. But Marty's like, what if I didn't do that? What if I just killed them? If you can just deck them, right? So he realized that like if you can answer an Atraxa and then like mill them for 15 twice, they're probably just dead because they will not be able to kill you in time. So their deck has too much air. So and that plan alone was absolutely massive in tilting the matchup. Like I wouldn't say that control crushes domain by any means, but it seemed at least even, and that's a really big change. And when you can like try to flip a matchup like that, that's very appealing, I think, especially if your opponent doesn't really know what's going on. So Jace the Perfected Mind was probably the card that made us more seriously more seriously consider Esper control than we otherwise would have. It's just kind of sweet. This is almost like the Chandra Light of the Night thing, You just figured out a way to go over the top of a deck that was
Same vibes, actually.
problems. Yeah.
It was same vibes, and Chandra
Yeah.
made. I mean, we will play the deck anyway without Chandra, I guess. But Chandra
Yeah.
was like what made the deck better, and here I
Yeah.
think they actually made the deck better as well
Yeah,
with this
for
change.
sure.
So yeah, definitely was something very very heavy on the table when it came down to the decision about which deck to play for sure.
Yeah, just being able to like flip a different plan on top of your opponent was just huge.
Yeah, I
so-
just think they did a good job. I think
Yeah.
Stefan, Carl, and Matti, they actually did a good job with this deck.
I really
Like, think
think
they
so.
played a
Alright,
good
guys.
version of the deck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving forward in standard, so I have an arena qualifier that I qualified with the Arena Open. Although that weekend I'll be in Sofia for the LMS, so I might play from my phone.
Oh,
Is there a fast deck to play?
There is
or
a mono
does
red
every
deck that's very good for phone Magic the Gathering. Yeah.
Is it actually good or is
I think it's
the
decent.
bad?
it's not
It's a
that.
decent deck. It's a tier 1 deck. It's
Yeah.
not bad.
I'm
There
surprised
is-
it didn't
there
do
is zero
better.
in
I don't
top
know.
25.
It's quite a solid deck. Maybe not. I guess not that many people played it, but
Well, it's not good against Esper. That's why. But it's good
Yeah,
against
but,
everything
like,
else.
it's quite solid overall. Otherwise, like
Yeah.
yeah, you could
There's
play
a-
mono red. I
friend
guess.
of-
I think Esper Legends is also
Esper
fine
Legends
for
maybe
phone
also.
gaming.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
Esper Legends, you
Esper
trigger
mid-range-
Orphine.
Esper mid. I do want to know Esper midrange and Esper Legends are very distinct decks. Okay, so
Yeah.
don't lump them together in general. Esper midrange, I would definitely not play on a phone. That's like playing. I don't know. It just seems horrible. Like it's like an extremely long and grindy. You're gonna play lots of long grindy games. They're gonna be very complex, and there's gonna be a lot of game objects. So not that good for phones. But Esper Legends probably fine. Like the games
Yeah,
are
it's totally fine. Yeah.
the games are difficult, but they're not as long, right? And they're also not as difficult. So
All right.
yeah, maybe
Then,
Esper Legends. I mean, also
sure.
it did pretty well, so you could
You,
just do that.
yeah, you can probably 75 the Pra easily.
Is
Perfect.
this just great?
Like,
Thank you.
yeah, I think you can 75
just
the
need-
Pra. And honestly, there's a
Alright.
chance like I might just do it as well. Like I think that
No
could
many.
just be correct.
I don't know how many wildcards I have though, but let's
you'll be
I
fine.
mean, you'll get there.
Yeah, so I guess
Yeah.
if you have to play off the
Let's
phone, then you kind of has to be Esper Legends or Mono Red, because most of the other decks are either slow or grindy or involve lots of things in play, which I assume is not very good.
Yeah,
For a
that is
phone.
correct.
But otherwise, there's a
Legends is
lot
just
of
good
options.
deck. Oh,
There's a
it's
lot of
not
options.
Wolves.
Like,
yeah,
I don't know
for sure.
if we have time to go over all of them. We probably don't. But look at how many different decks there are that are actually good. Like you could have played
Oh yeah.
Domain or Band Control or the Cauldron deck, which lots of people found extremely exciting. Shout out to Alexei Polo, of course. There's the Enchantments deck. Did not expect that one to come back.
Alexei's decks is wild. I mean,
yeah.
you can put it in the screen, please, because
Yes.
that deck is like wild. It's like because there were some Cauldron decks around, but this is a different thing. Like this is like
Yeah, so
an
for the
actual
people
combo deck with this deck as well.
for the people that are
That's a
just
sick brew.
listening and don't really play too much standard, so this deck actually had an infinite combo. Of course, it involved Agatha Soul Cauldron, which is the card that gives the name to the deck, and you exile enough things that you go infinite, right?
So Kamiya
So
Whispered
you
Hopes,
exile the
makes your creatures. Well, it also has synergy with the first one, if you have to have a fair
so
plan.
Kami says tap add X to your mana pool, where X is the power of the card. And you have Sleep Curse Fairy, which for 1 blue untaps itself. And then you have the Realm Scorcher Hellkite for 2 mana, you deal 1 damage. So you combine these 3 cards under the cauldron, and you have infinite damage, right?
Yeah, once you have infinite mana, yep.
Yeah. So you need the fairy to be the one that has the counter, right?
Well, it doesn't matter
Well, I mean,
as
you
long
can
as
just
you
have.
have one on the cauldron, or it can be on the cauldron or the creature. So you just got the
Yeah,
fairy.
but you need the power.
It doesn't matter. Like you
You
need
need
the,
the power.
well, but the Kami
You
also
need the
gets extra
power.
power. So if you
Yeah.
have enough power, you can just flick everything, like get infinite mana, whatever, and then you go with Rona, and then you untap it infinitely. And you draw the cards, and then you just get a dragon and kill them. Like this deck is just like very well
Yeah.
built. Once I just took like a minute to actually understand what was going on. This is like very well rounded combo deck, like where the pieces are kind of fine, and the decks. I mean, I'm
It
as a deck builder, I'm impressed by this deck. I think it's very good.
Yeah,
it
like we
plays
had a
with
Soul
this
Cauldron deck
protection
as
as a
well, but like it wasn't like this one.
No, this was better. The protection is because it has to stop Danik. Danik stop your combo.
Shieldred.
Yeah,
Oh,
shoulder, but also
Danik.
Danik, which is more
Danik
Yeah,
is
for the
yeah,
Cauldron.
yeah.
Yeah, so you kill Danik very cleanly with this card, which is also fine, and also permanent with the permanent thing with like Ren and natural restoration or whatever.
Oh,
And
Seed
Seed
of
of
Hope.
Hope also very
wow.
good in this deck. Seed of Hope is
Br-
like a cantrip that gains
yeah,
life and deep, and
yeah.
also fills your graveyard. I don't know.
Right. Cool.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, everything in
Congrats,
this deck is
Alexei.
very good. Yeah, I mean also Alexei. Well, there was a big talk here in the tournament, the Alexei situation, because he actually do the last round into being ninth.
With me,
I
yeah.
don't know if you were. I don't know if you have this Mengu.
Yeah, I did.
So yeah, so like there was, for the listeners. Long story short is like this was the situation where, like, can you put the standings on round 15 or whatever, like round 14? I think
Yeah,
they were there.
this.
Yeah, so like basically the math actually works. So he could draw
14.
into an 8. I think actually even the coverage assumed he wasn't to draw because the math just that they often do this in PTs or whatever. Like when people are drawing, they just not don't bring it to the feature match. But what happened is Malay had like there was in the pairings 2 pair downs in the last round, which no one saw them coming, and it just like at the 30 points where I don't remember how it went, but like it was
Yeah, yeah. So I believe that 2 people got paired down instead of getting paired against each other.
That's right.
yeah, something
So
like this.
right. So specifically, everybody had done the math. I mean, when I say everybody, I mean a bunch of people from our group. I think a couple of people from Channel Fireball mentioned to me that they had assumed that we would draw. Multiple of the judges, in fact, had assumed that we would draw, and that was based on assuming that, as with all Magic tournaments, that it would pair from the top down. So what we call power pairings. So first plays against second if possible, third plays against fourth, and so on, or as close as is possible. But that, for whatever reason, did not happen with Melee, and no one actually realized that was going to happen. So everybody had done math based on assuming the pairings were going to go a certain way. The pairings did not go that way. We did not realize to check those pairings that had gone that way because, well, we just assumed that it just works the way it always does. And then the pairings broke this way. That did not lock Alexei to be out. Like, I think multiple matches had to have a specific result, but it meant that we thought that Alexei was locked, but it turned out he was only 75% to make it, or something like that. I don't recall. I think it's around that. I think that's what Rich Hagen told me. Yeah, and then I guess the matches all broke the way that were the wrong way for Alexei, and he missed, which is just incredibly brutal. Like, I'm not sure. I don't know if there was some kind of error with Melee, or if, I don't know what went wrong, because, or if it's meant to be like that way now. I don't really know what's up, but it's a very difficult situation, I think.
I mean,
Yeah.
definitely a
Yeah.
super rough one for him for sure. Like, I mean,
Like I
he
think,
must he's
yeah,
been
yeah,
yeah,
I'm not
like
thrilled
it's
about it,
definitely a rough
obviously.
situation, especially because like you draw, you think you're kind of logged or whatever, but you're still like like skeptical, and then you find out like there's been two pair downs, and also the two pair downs actually the play on top one. Like that's what happened in this situation, and yeah, I mean that's kind of rough. We're
I
talking about
hope,
the deck.
yeah,
It's
I hope something comes of it for Alexei because I think that would be fair. But either way, I think, in terms of something practical for our listeners, especially those playing in regional championships, I would say you should definitely check the pairings instead of assuming that they will work the way that they have always worked or are supposed to work or anything like that. Like actually check the pairings because something like this might happen. Um,
Yeah, it could have happened to any one of us. That's the thing.
yeah.
Like we
So you have to
we
check.
you
You
definitely
absolutely have to check the
yeah, like
actually
before,
look at the
but yeah,
pairings
exactly. We
because
never did it before. We
even
always look at the
after
standings and we assume the pairings were like this. Maybe it's because the buy systems on top or whatever. But this could
yeah,
be
I
in
don't
any of
know.
us. Like that. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
even after looking at the pairings though, if you're locked 75%, is it still better to ID than
Well, yeah,
play?
probably, but I mean, he like he should have been able to choose like with
Yeah,
all the
Alex he
information.
chooses exactly.
No, no,
Like
no. Yeah,
it's
yeah. I'm just
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the
I
way
mean,
he's
maybe he would still
playing
I
choose.
it.
We
will
don't know
have
that.
I will have ideas in his shoes for a 75 or whatever. But I think you have to make a choice. Like it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
Because maybe you prefer like it's a 75 but it's not on you, maybe you just prefer to be you
Yeah.
who
Maybe
decides
you have a
the
great
tournament.
matchup as well.
Also a good matchup. I don't know who's good in I don't know who's good in the matchup. Like maybe the matchup is very good, so yes, I will play then. I have an idea, assuming like a 50-50 matchup. But
Yeah.
like like it's I think you should be able to make a choice. Like I mean, yeah, definitely the lesson here is this: we should check the pairings more, which is something we didn't do
We
or
didn't have to do
have
before,
not
but
done in
now
the
I
past.
think now it's
Yeah, we
important.
didn't have to do it before, exactly, because all the old report or whatever. But this is the life we live on. There's the situation where when I live in the tournament, so we should look be careful with the pairings going forward because we don't know what's going on here. And for I mean, you don't want to be not the one going out if you don't know what's going on. Well, different thing is if you take the risk, because you're like, okay, this is plus EV, but that's a different thing. They follow the situation. I
Yeah.
mean, we're sorry for. It must have been a
Definitely, yeah.
rough day, but
I mean, yeah, it was
that's
really
it.
really rough for him, of course.
Yeah, no, absolutely, of course.
I felt very bad for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, definitely
Anyway,
the best, like the coolest deck for the tournament. Could even be the best deck. I actually don't know how good it is, but definitely when I looked at the deck, I was like, "Well, this is
It is very well
this
built.
does make sense." And we had no idea anything like this could exist on this form, or we will
Yes.
have explored it more.
well, we did
Like,
explore
definitely,
some
like-
cauldron decks, but I think he just dug deeper. Like some of these cards, like Unnatural Restoration, I barely remember as existing. Like
Yeah, no, I mean we saw some deck lists, but they didn't strike to me as like this deck looks like a very good combo deck. Like
Yes.
it's not very hard to actually just kill the people. Like you can just go like Rona and Kami, and then just put two counters, discard on the Kami, and then you have 3 mana. And it's very easy to actually put the thing into work. And there's so many ways to dig for the Caldron. I mean, looks like a fine deck.
I mean,
Also
this
looks
is
fun.
definitely something that people could explore more going forward in Standard because I mean, this seems to have been mostly Alexei's work, I imagine. But he's one guy, right? So who knows, like what else we can see from this deck? And we didn't get to see the deck fully in action, which would have been nice. But I think, wow, what's this Animus my card? Anyway, so yeah, like I don't know. There's still a lot to figure out about Standard, and this is one of the big question marks going forward. I think, like there are a lot of things that we're not sure about with Standard right now. Like there are a lot of decks, and some of them turn out to be a bit better than others, but not by a lot. But this one is just I have no idea. I just don't know anything about this deck.
Which is very
honestly.
cool, though. I think the standard format we have now, I think it's a very good format, especially
Oh, it's
like,
fantastic, yeah.
yeah, like for fun play or whatever. Like I think standard tends to be good, but this is just good. There's a lot of good decks, and there's not like a clear best deck that just warps everything or anything like.
Well,
There's
it's
just
also
not
that
such
like
thing.
I think
That's just
Standard is
good.
often good, but it's often specifically good for people like us who mostly care about like skill testing games or whatever. But this standard format actually is, I think it's good for everyone. I think that's what I would want to emphasize. That
Well, except one thing
Yeah.
though, which is the clock issue. By the way, I
Sure,
think we
yeah.
should also address this a little bit
yes,
because there were a lot of draws, matches going to time
Yes.
in Worlds. I mean, if a player draws often, it's the player's fault. But if every player is drawing often, then it's not the fault of the players.
right.
If that
So,
makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Does it- does it?
that is an
Yeah.
issue in But I mean, I think that's also a byproduct of the games being good. Like no one is like people are not really getting run over, but that does mean that you have to be conscious of a 50-minute timer, of course. But I think in
Do
general,
you
like
think they should change it? Do you think it's gonna change? Do you think it should change, like in the
I
future?
remember
maybe
you mentioned that in the past standard, and
yes.
Did we?
we mentioned it on the
Yes, we did.
podcast
Specifically, like the
in
games are
Naples.
long. They involve a lot of objects. There's a lot of decisions, right? So like, people
It's
just
getting
use all of the
worse.
clock. Yeah.
I remember when I was playing the Grixis against Mono White,
Oh,
you
that's
just were
true.
forced to concede game one
That
immediately.
is true. That's true.
Like,
We talk about this.
Yes. You
Yeah, I
just
just
think. Yeah.
turn six farewell, you concede
At this
the,
point,
the
I
game.
understand the
extreme.
logistics issues or whatever, but this tournament ended like at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. Like this tournament could have been easily a 1 hour
right,
tournament,
right.
1 hour round tournament, and we'll have seen less coverage, concessions, and less draws or whatever. Like,
Sure.
you look at the standings, there's a lot of draws. I think if the format's gonna be standard, I think 1 hour clocks for pro
Even
tour
55
events
would
and
be
even
like
Pro
a
Tour.
big change.
even 55 anything
Yeah,
like
but
just anything that's longer, like it just felt like the clock was not enough. Like it will call
think
time and you will see so many tables in the battlefield still, especially in standard,
think
not
that
in the rest. But
if you make a change like that, it has to be for everyone because they announced the standard is gonna be the format of the limited open event. It's gonna
Yep.
be the format of just the RC. It's gonna be the format of so like once you decide
Yes.
why is
this
that
is
though? Like
important.
it's open egg list. Open egg list takes more time. Like why will not you give open egg list players more time? Also, back in the day, Pro
Well,
Tours
yeah,
were longer
the
times than they
RCs.
were. Yeah, RCs. I think RCs and PTs. I think open egg list tournaments maybe should have more time.
Well, I
Because
also
also players
think
naturally take more time to sideboard, like they
yeah.
look at the
I also
slide
think
list
players
between,
just play a little more slowly when the stakes are that much higher. So
which is very human.
yeah,
It's a
that's
human
just
thing to do
normal,
so, right? I
right?
don't like it, but
Like,
it's a human thing, and it's fine.
yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe RCs plus, like open egg list tournaments, should probably have a little bit more time. Like it's not we complaining about players because then again, like if a large amount of players are drawing, also it's not like you can pick many decks that don't have matchups that draw. If you don't play Mararet, you're gonna have some matchups that are likely going to be a draw unless you play like extremely fast, like way above the average. Like an average speed player will get a draw in this tournament easily.
Yeah.
Like I
So
think that will be the thing, and that's not very cool. I think.
that is one thing to be conscious of. But I mean, I don't know. I would take that. Like I think that's a symptom that comes from fundamentally good things. So I mean, I think they can address that. And
No,
that players
absolutely,
can be
yeah,
conscious
yeah,
of
yeah.
it.
Like
but-
this happens because Anthony said, like this happens because games are good. Like there are not turn 3 kills or whatever, not
Yeah.
50 kills, but actually like or turn 4 kills with Marvel or whatever. The games are good. Like I'm not saying this is a bad format. I think this is a good format, but because it is a good format, we often see a lot of draws. So I think the PT would be better if
Yeah, for sure.
there was more time. And I think I play a little bit faster than a lot of some players, so I don't think I'm the biggest affected. It's probably even good for me in a way if I draw
Yeah.
if you draw less than other people, it's good for you and there's less time.
Yes. For
But I
sure.
just think like it's just good for the tournament in a way. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think of this.
Well, I mean, I think clearly that's the case. I guess we'll see if logistically that's possible.
I mean, it takes more time, so it's also worse. Like it will mean tournaments take longer, and that's also bad for people. So
I
don't
think
know if
I
it's-
think it's
I-
a trade-off
I per-
that players clearly want based on what they've been
Personally,
saying.
I think that if you go like 1,000 people tournament, like the Open in Chicago, which will be standard, 60 minutes. It's if you do 8 rounds like it was,
Too long.
one, it would take like forever because But again, it is
it's a thing.
it is not.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
I think that's not
You can
clear.
diversify pro tours and I guess RC, but like RC is also like 1,000 people anyway, the American and European. So
What
you can
about
do, like
opening
7 days
earlier?
day one,
Do you
7
think-
days day
Sure,
one,
I mean
7 days day
this
two,
is
and
just
top
logistical
8.
discussion that isn't really relevant to players. I think. I mean,
Yeah.
tournament organizers can figure that out. I would say.
Anyway, I think we covered a lot of things today. Unfortunately, we didn't get to talk about the Pioneer RC, but we have promised between us three that we'll talk about it next episode. So we will leave that pretty good content for the next one. What about this episode, guys? Do you have something else to say about that weekend in Vegas? That's that you really wanted to share that we forgot to say.
I don't know. There's a lot of things that were good about the weekend. Uh,
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
like this tournament was very. I mean, then again, it didn't look well, but it was like they just take care that we had like reasonable food, drinks, whatever. Like it was very good on this aspect. By the way, like
Mm.
this was a very good tournament to play from my perspective, even though I was like losing all the matches. But yeah, also yeah, I want to shout out my. I had a lot of opponents that were like very good sports, and it just keeps happening, and makes it easier to be wanted to keep playing these tournaments, if you know what I mean, right? Like the vibes are good or whatever. So
Yeah, I would say almost all of my opponents were like they went way above and beyond in terms of how pleasant. Like I basically only like I would say nearly every round I played against someone who was actively very nice. Like I played against Willie, Reed, Ilnano from Italy. Like all these guys are just like great guys. Like David also from Canada. Like they're
Also,
just outstanding people, right?
y-
Just
you had
so
a
nice.
66% match win rate, so the best tiebreaker, that
Well,
means
yeah, if
that
you
your
play
opponents
against
were
Reed twice and then
good.
and the and Simon, then obviously your
it goes
tiebreakers will
up.
be
Yeah,
good. Like
read effect.
No, like good players are nice. That this is what I wanted to say.
Well,
Yeah, I
I
think
also
it's
played against
correlated.
unknown players that were very nice. That I don't, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no. I'm joking about that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
no.
Yeah,
I mean,
everyone was
yeah,
very pleasant. Yeah,
yeah.
and they were
For me,
fun.
it was yeah. For me, it was like this like American very big con. So a lot of people that doesn't often meet me. So it was obviously a lot of interactions with, but yeah, also my opponents were all cool, and yeah, it was nice. It definitely felt good to
Yeah. For me, the
to be
worst part.
there. And
Sorry, so go ahead. Sorry.
no, just I look forward to Chicago because I knew that it will be good again.
Well, I was gonna say this. Like, it's so much time until then, and you're
Yeah,
also
so
not gonna be
long.
in the next four seasons. So, we'll see when we see each
Yeah,
other.
for me, I have the LMS in Sofia, that's modern, and then the European Eternal Weekend in November, and then there's another LMS in Barcelona. So I think we'll see each other at least twice.
Yeah, not Anthony though. He lives too far.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
not Anthony.
We'll see each other
All
a
right.
bunch
I
of
think. I
times
mean,
over the next year.
that's true. I think that's it. But it was it was a great tournament. I mean, this Worlds was a good experience, and Anthony's qualified for next year. Let's
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
we can qualify
Congrats.
Mengu
So
for next year
you're
World, so we can live this
you're
again. That would be great.
you're qualified for 4 events, right?
Yep.
Anthony, yes, yes.
That's
Javier's
impressive.
Qualify
qualified
for
for
everything
3, and
this
he'll
year.
almost certainly qualify for the Worlds as well. So,
Well, not almost certainly. I wonder what's the math for like
you always
55%
say
win
you
rate.
won't, and you do. I don't know. I mean, I
Huh?
know this. I know there's math for the average player to qualify for Worlds if they qualify for 3 PTs, but I know you're going
What
to
is the
qualify.
math? What is the math for average player?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't look at it because it's not relevant because you're not the average player. So,
Well, I
who
was
knows?
wondering what's the math, but
I don't
yeah,
know.
I will say like
Julian Wellman will tell us. I'm sure
it's probably
you know,
50%, right?
he's our quant.
Must
What's
be.
that?
Must be over 50%, I would say.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you can probably Tommy Ashton in or whatever. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, that's like 973 times.
Something like that,
this.
yeah. He thought it was very funny. He had a great time because he was saying, I think Tommy said he literally had the worst possible record you could get to qualify for Worlds. So,
Well,
I
still
love
to go
Tommy
better
so
than
much.
9.7, you need to get lucky. If you
Yeah,
did.
yeah, for
So,
sure. I mean, it's
I'm
already hard to
not.
get 9.7 3 times. Like, but I mean, he was saying it like he did really badly, but not really. Like, it's not that easy, as anyone who's played in their first Pro Tour can tell you. Day touring is very far from trivial, but
Yeah,
um,
exactly. So I'm looking forward to try to fight to qualify for Worlds, but I can't wait.
don't you
February
think
is
it's great, Javier, that
it's
do you
far away.
do you remember Javier in Barcelona when we got paired? You really thought about conceding to me because you already had the qualification, and we were trying to
Yeah.
figure out who would care more about AMPs, and then it now it just ended up not mattering for either of us at all.
No, but this year they matter for me, not for
Now
you.
they matter for you, yeah. But I mean, like at the time we got paired and thought about, should someone concede it? We were like, oh, who need? It just ended up being totally irrelevant. So,
Yeah.
in the
I
best
mean,
possible way.
it's just good. I mean, this year, we should do maybe like a end of season Carney's recap, because definitely I remember like when we started the podcast or whatever, this was a wild season. Like Zen, we all qualified to a PT list. That's like when we started the podcast, we had no PT qualification because we didn't qualify in the LAN tournaments or whatever. So I think it could be cool also to do this if you guys think it's fun or
Yeah, also
calc up
calc
to
as
like
well.
it's if
Yeah.
listeners think it's fun, we could also do this like a small recap or whatever of the event. But also we will first talk about Pioneer next week, but maybe later we can do
Yeah,
that. I don't know. I think it's just an idea. It
let's
just popped now.
let's yeah. Let's wrap it up. So I also wanted to shout out the Discord. Of course, we haven't been releasing a podcast in 2 weeks. So, but still, we have a Discord that is somewhat active. Most importantly, we had a person asking an update on the Tron guide, and it was my job to inquire consistently and tag consistently Anthony and Javier
Yeah, we
about
were flying. I
the
don't know.
the cyber change. No, it was funny. It was just funny that I
We
was
had
always.
we also had some good Anthony memes creation for Waltz.
Oh dear.
We had an
Yes.
Oh, that's true.
Anthony meme channel with, in my opinion, it was very high quality. Just saying.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to join the Discord, of course, at patreon.com/carnies, and that is it. We'll be back next week with the next episode. But until then, thank you for listening, and have a great rest of the week.
Have a good week. Also, thanks for listening. Bye bye.
Cheers.